Okay, so we're by the two dots on Sadi Hay and Aleph, 95a, talking about the next case of the Mishnah, which told us that if you sell a whole cellar of wine, at least 100 barrels of wine, so if 10 of those are spoiled or are sour, so then it's still a good deal because up to 10 barrels per 100, a person is willing to forgo on, and therefore it's considered a good sale, and he cannot get his money back. So we're going to quote, it's a little bit confusing. We're going to quote two brises. They're both each a little bit technical in the wording. And so let's see. So Martev Shel Yain says the Gemara, Heichi Dami. What exactly is the case? And there's going to be three cases that are all going to be worded very similar, but they have a small little nuance difference. Ida Amarle Martev Shel Yain Stam. If you say a Martev Shel Yain, just a seller of wine, Stam, those are the words. I'm selling you a seller of wine, Kasha. Ida Amarle Martev Zeh Shel Yain, Kasha. So we're saying, what's the case in our Mishnah that you've accepted upon yourself? 10 out of 100 barrels are going to be, if 10 of 100 are sour, it's still going to be a good sale. What exactly is the case? If you said Martev Shel Yain Stam, that's difficult. And if you say Martev Zeh, this seller of wine, that's also going to be difficult. Why is it going to be difficult? Because we're going to have a brisa that's going to say these things that even when you say these, if you phrase it in this way, so we're going to see that it's not going to say you accepted 10 out of 100 barrels to be bad. So, Ida Amrle Martev Zeh Kasha. How do I know? The Tanya Martev Shel Yain Ani Mochalach says the brisa. A seller of wine, Martev Shel Yain Ani Mochalach, no sin lo yain, shekulo yafe. Morning, Jules. Morning. Sorry, I'm late. So if you say Martev Shel Yain Ani Mochalach, you just say I'm selling you a seller of wine. So then no sin lo yain, shekulo yafe. So then you give him the wine, and you're expected to give. We just started with like 3 lines in. See the Martev Shel Yain, the seller of wine. Yeah. Yeah. So if you say Martev Shel Yain, the brisa says the guy has to give only good wine. If you say Martev Zeh Shel Yain, this seller of wine ani mochalach, so then he's referring to this wine that's in the store. So Martev Zeh Shel Yain ani mochalach no sin lo yain hanimkar b'chanos. So then you have to give him all the wine that's in the store. Once again, we see nothing about 10 barrels going bad. If it's regular Martev, you have to give him good wine. All the wine he gets, expect it to be good. Because regular wine, a person expects to have good wine. The guy says, this seller, meaning that then the guy accepts whatever wine you have in the store, he's accepting. And the third case is Martev Zeh Ani Mochalach. So not Martev Zeh Shel Yain. He just says, this seller, I'm selling you this seller. So if you say I'm selling you this seller, so then afilu kulo chometz higiu. Even if the whole cellar is filled with vinegar, meaning all the wine that went spoiled, that's still going to be a good sale. So 3 cases, Martev Zeh Shel Yain, or just Martev Zeh. And all those 3 cases, not one of them is about, do we see this idea of 10 for 100? You with us, Jules? You with us?
I'll get there.
It's about to get very technical.
Oh,
it's easier if you. Should I find it for you? Here, Martev Shel Yain, a seller of wine, and then we just quoted this is Bryce. Up to the word la'olam right here. Actually, yeah. So says the Gemara, la'olam the Amarle Martev Shel Yain Stam. Really, that first case in the brisa that said, I'm selling you a cellar of wine. Vitani Bereisha the Brisa, add in the following. It's I'm selling you a cellar of wine, and you have to add in that the buyer accepted upon himself Mikabel alav Eser Kosasos Limeya, and that he accepted upon himself 10 sour barrels for every 100. So our Mishnah said if you buy something, then if there's 10 barrels per 100 that go sour, it's still a good sale. So now we're saying if you add in the words to the first case of the Brisa, so then that would be the case of our Mishnah, and then it would make sense. So says the Gemara, Ubestam mi mekabel. One second. Yeah, we said Ubestam mi mekabel, meaning we said that case of the Brisa that was just, a regular case where you just said this seller is talking about a case where you accepted upon yourself 10, for every 100, then 10 are going to be, if 10 are sour, then you accept the deal. So it says the Gemara, really? Ubestam mi mekabel? Is that true that in a regular case, a guy just has marteif shel yayin, a seller of wine? Is that true that a person would be willing to accept 10 per 100? V'hatani Reb Chia taught in a brisa, hamocher chavis yayin v'chavero. If you just sell wine to your friend, you sell a barrel of wine to your friend, nosin lo yayin shekulo yafe. So here talking about a single barrel, but if you sell your friend a single barrel of wine, so he expects the entire barrel to be full, to be good wine. So if you sell a whole vat of wine, a whole cellar of wine, how can you say that he'll accept upon himself that 10 barrels of wine, if 10 are not good, he'll still accept it? Regular wine, a person usually wants good wine. Says the Gemara, that's not a question because shiny chavis tikulu chad chamru. You're right. When it comes to one barrel of wine, so then a person wants the whole barrel to be good. When it comes to a cellar of wine, there's leeway, even if he accepts 10. In a case of selling a cellar of wine, so then we're saying that a person would accept 10 for every 100 to not be good, and therefore let's say he paid $1,000 for 100 barrels of wine. If 10 of them aren't good, we don't say the guy owes you back $10. Rather, we say it's still a good sale because that amount people are willing to forgo on. Okay, here's where it gets a little technical. So we just had a brisa with 3 cases: martev stam, martev zeh shel yayin, and martev zeh. So those 3 cases. We're going to teach now another brisa of Zvid that's going to contradict that, and then we're going to answer. It's going to be 6 cases, and we're going to answer them all hopefully. So v'hatani Rav Zvid b'dibei Rabbi Oshia, the following case: martev shel yayin ani mocherlach, nosin lo yayin shekulo yafa. So that is identical to our brisa. Here's where it differs. Martev zeh shel yayin. Martev zeh shel yayin. In our earlier brisa, it said that he has to give him all the wine in the store. In this brisa, it says martev zeh shel yayin mokalach nosin lo yayin shekulo yafa. He has to give him every bottle has to be of good wine. Umekabel alav eser kosos lemeya, and if that's the case, that's where a person is mekabel, he accepts upon himself 10 sour barrels for every 100. So in the first brisa we said that it's the first case, just regular martev shel yayin, that a person accepted upon themselves 10 barrels. The second case we had was martev zeh shel yayin. There, the first brisa said whatever's in the store is what he's going to get, and the second brisa is saying that no, he's going to get only good wine, and he'll accept 10 out of the 100 barrels to be, he'll forego on those. And then the brisa says, "V'zehu otzer sheshanu chachamim b'mishnaseinu," and this is what our Mishnah is talking about. It's talking about this case. Our Mishnah is talking about martev zeh shel yayin. The first brisa told us that the Mishnah is talking about martev shel yayin, without the word zeh. This Bryce is saying that it's martev zeh shel yayin. That's going to be the case of our Mishnah. But if you just did stam martev shel yayin without saying martev zeh, right? Zeh is specifying. Stam is usually means in general. So according to this, it's only if you say martev zeh, this vat of wine, this cellar of wine, would a guy accept upon himself, okay, this cellar of wine, I guess if there's 10 of them that aren't good out of 100, I've accepted that upon myself. However, a regular case, martev stam, where you didn't say the word zeh, so then you're going to owe the guy, has the only good wine. So, and that's what our Mishnah is talking about. You have to say that when the Mishnah said its case, it wasn't telling you exactly the specific details of the case. It was just telling you the general rule. So as the details are that in the Mishnah you said zeh. So says the Gemara, in these two cases, where the two brises differ, it's the cases are martev zeh shel yayin. The first brise that told us martev zeh, what happens? You have to give whatever's in the store. You say this cellar of wine, so whatever's in the store, you have to sell them, and that's it. The second brise said, no, martev zeh shel yayin means you owe the guy only good wine, and he's willing to accept 10 out of every 100. He'll forgo on those. So says the Gemara, kasha zeh azeh. Those two brises are at odds with each other because it's the same case with two different results. So kasha zeh azeh. The case of zeh has one result in one brisa and another result in another brisa. Difficulty. Says the Gemara, another permutation over here. Lo kasha. Why? Ha de amar leila mikvah. So ha de amar leila mikvah. So mikvah with a fey, not with a vase. Yeah. So here it means it's wine for cooking. The mikvah over here means wine for cooking. So one brisa is talking about where there's wine for cooking, and one is where it's not wine for cooking. So which is which? So the second brisa, Rav Zvid that said that when you say martev zeh, you owe the guy very good wine, that was talking about wine for cooking, because that's where you said, I want wine for cooking, because there it's very good wine. It lasts for a very long time. You only use a little bit at a time. So when a person says, when I'm telling you this wine, right, and the guy, and he says this wine for cooking, so then two things happen. The guy owes him only good wine, not whatever's in the store, only good wine. Because cooking wine, a person's very strict about. He wants good wine, and in that case, it's gonna a person can accept upon themselves. That every 10 barrels of good wine is going to be he'll forgo on those. But if you just say martev zeh shel yayin and you don't say for cooking, so that's the case in the first brisa, and in that case you didn't say for cooking. Therefore, you're not so machmir, you're not so strict about getting only good wine. So therefore, whatever wine's in the store is what you want. So lo kasha hadam the mikvah, the lo the mikvah. The Rav Zvid the amrei the mikvah. Brisa the lo amrei the mikvah. So Rav Zvid is the case where we're talking about cooking wine, and the first brisa where we're talking about regular wine. Says the Gemara, Hilkach. Therefore, the following comes out. And it's going to give you a bunch of cases now. Martev shel yayin. So one thing, it's a stam case, it's a general case. You didn't say zeh. Martev shel yayin. So we're going to play everything in now. We're going to have a case of general, where you said for wine, where you said for cooking wine, and we're going to have a case of general where you didn't say for cooking wine. We're going to have a specific case where you said for cooking wine, and we're going to have not a specific case for cooking wine. So Hilkach, Martev shel yayin. You have a general case, martev shel yayin, the amar leila mikvah, and you said you want it for regular wine for cooking. No sin lo yayin shekulo yafa. You have to give the guy wine. All the wine has to be good wine. Martev zeh shel yayin. this seller of wine, the Amar Leila Mikvah, and you said you wanted to be specifically for cooking wine, no sino yain shakulo yafa. You're going to give the guy wine that's good, only good wine, and umekabel alav eser kosos lemeya. The guy will be happy to accept out of those 100 barrels, 10 are not good. Martev zeh shel yayin velo amar le mikvah. Let's say you said this seller of wine, and you didn't say it's for cooking. So then no sin lo yayin hanimkar bechanos. Then you have to give him whatever wine is found in the store. So now it says the Gemara Ibailu. We have a question. Martev shel yayin. You said a regular case. You didn't specify this seller, a general seller of wine. Velo amar le mikvah, and you didn't say you wanted for cooking. So general wine that you didn't say for cooking, what would be the halacha? So that's going to be a machlokas. Pligi baravach of Ravina chadamar mekabel, v'chadamar lo mekabel. So each one, so one opinion says you're going to accept upon yourself that even in a case of martev, without saying zeh, if you say it's for cooking, that you'll accept upon yourself if 10 barrels aren't good, you'll be happy to forego on those, and the other one's going to argue. Now, what's this question? So the Rashbam speaks out the following. He says that he says like this: when you say martev zeh shel yayin, you want this seller of wine, and you specified you want it for cooking. So then, 1 second. Right, meaning when a guy says, we're asking now in a general case, martev shel yayin. Now, we want to compare this to a case where a guy says martev zeh shel yayin. Why? In a case where a guy specifies martev zeh shel yayin, and he says he wants it for cooking. So on the one hand, he says cooking, which implies that he wants good wine. But on the other hand, he said zeh. When a person says zeh, so it sounds like, he'll take whatever wine is here. On the one hand, he wants cooking wine, and on the other hand, he wants any wine that's here. So in this case where you didn't say zeh, you just says martev shel yayin, and you didn't say it's for cooking either. So are you willing to accept any wine? Well, you didn't say it's for cooking. So maybe you'll accept any wine. 1 second. Yeah, I'm just going to read it from the Rashbam for a second, just to make it a little bit simpler. The Rashbam says that when a person says martev zeh, you have one good thing going for you because you said mikvah, that you wanted for cooking. However, on the other hand, you said martev zeh. It sounds like whatever you have here, I'll accept. In our case, our question is when you don't say zeh. So what's the question? Says the Rashbam, hachanami ikachada letivusa, the amar martev shel yayin. You said you want a cellar of wine, and you didn't say zeh. Sounds like you want general wine, not this wine that's here. The general wine. Generally, wine is a good wine. Regular wine, we assume when a guy walks in and wants wine, he means he wants only good wine. That, on the other hand, you didn't say you want wine for cooking. So maybe you're happy with even a lower quality wine. So that's the question here. When a guy just says a regular seller of wine, is he okay to have less quality wine? Does he only want good quality wine? So on the one hand, he didn't say zeh. So maybe he wants only good wine. When he just says, I want a cellar of wine, it means, the regular wine that you buy in the marketplace, which is good, normal wine. If you were to say zeh, it means whatever wine you seller have over here, and you're willing to settle for a lower quality. Yeah. Okay. So one opinion says that even in this case, you're makabel, that you'll accept upon yourself if 10 barrels out of every 100 aren't good, you're makabel. You'll forego on them and it's going to be a good sale. V'chad amar lo makabel. And now we're going to a little bit plug this back into the brisa. Man da Amar Mekabel, the one who accepts it, who accepts 10 out of every 100, he's Dayik Midirav Zvid. He is going to understand, he says this case because he learned from the brisa of Rav Zvid. What does he see in Rav Zvid? The Katani Rav Zvid taught us, Martev Shel Yayin, Ani Mochelach. If you say stam, you don't say zeh. You just say a seller of wine that I'm selling to you. What happens? No sin lo yayin shekulo yafa. You give wine that's only good wine. Ve'ukimna, and we said that's talking about a case, the Amar le mikvah. That's talking about a case where you sold wine for cooking. So says this opinion, oh, I see from Rav Zvid, you only give good wine because why? Time of the Amar le mikvah. Because you specified you wanted wine for cooking. Therefore, the halacha is you get only good wine. But in our case, that lo Amar le mikvah, you didn't specify cooking wine, so that means that you're makabel any kind of wine, even a lower quality wine, and therefore if 10 barrels are going to be sour, out of every 100, you'll forego on that, and you'll be okay with that. Okay. Umanda Amar lo makabel, according to the opinion that says that in this case of Martev Shel Yain, of just a seller of wine, and you didn't specify for cooking, the other opinion said that you're very strict to get only good wine. So where are they coming from? Umanda Amar lo makabel dayik mi brisa. He's going to learn it out from the first brisa, the Katani. That first brisa taught, Martev Shel Yain Ani Mochelach, Nosin lo Yain Shekulo Yafa. When you sell a seller of wine, when you're saying Martev Shel Yain Ani Mochelach, the halacha there was Nosin lo Yain Shekulo Yafa. That first brisa was, we said it was that you owe the guy only good wine. The ukimna, and we established the case that what? Dilo Amar le mikvah. That case is that first brisa where you owe the guy good wine. You didn't say zeh. You just said stam. I'm selling you a seller of wine, and the brisa said it's where you did not say for cooking, and yet we still see that you owe only good wine. So therefore, our case also, that it's going to be the same case. You're going to say Martev Shel Yain. You didn't say for cooking. You owe the guy only good wine, and he's not willing to forgo on 10 bottles because he really wants only 100% high quality wine. So now we're going to ask each one on the other. Ulaman did dayik mid Rav Zvid, the one that learned from Rav Zvid, his halacha kasha brisa. Now the brisa is difficult for him because the one that learned from Rav Zvid said that in our case you would accept 10 barrels for every 100. So what does he do with the brisa? So he'll say that the brisa must be chasurim extra to change the brisa to say the following: B'medvar mamurim the amrei lemikvah. You have to read that first case of the brisa where you say hamocher yayin stam is talking about where you say that it's for cooking. But halo amrei lemikvah, if you never said you want wine for cooking, mikabel, you've accepted the fact that 10 barrels might be sour, and that's okay. Umartev zeshel yayin, and then you're going to read the brisa. If you say this seller of wine, velo amrei lemikvah, and if you say this seller and you don't say for cooking, no sin lo yayin animkar b'chanus. And any wine that's sold in the store is good because you said this wine, this seller of wine, which means that you're willing to accept whatever's coming your way. You didn't say it's for wine, for cooking, so we see that you weren't strict on getting high quality wine. So in that case, whatever wine's in the store, you've accepted. So therefore, you can't come and say, no, I only want only good wine, because you said zeh, and you didn't say mikvah. Uleman de dayak mi brisa. Now the other opinion that learns from the brisa that that person has not accepted upon himself, and you just say a regular case of martev shel yayin, you don't say zeh, and you don't say for cooking, he has not accepted upon himself to forego on 10 barrels of wine. So leman de dayak mi brisa. So what's it, Rav Zvid? If you learn Rav Zvid that brisa, then you should accept upon yourself 10 barrels. Kasha de Rav Zvid. Why? Because Rav Zvid said the only reason you're getting high quality wine is because you kimla de amrei mikvah, because you specified you wanted it for cooking. But according to Rav Zvid, if you didn't say for cooking, halo amrei mikvah, then mikabel. And we're going now in the opinion that said that in the case where you did not specify, you're not mikabel. So how is it going to make sense with Rav Zvid? So huadin the afal gav de lo amrei mikvah lo mikabel. He'll have to say that even if you didn't say le mikvah, if you didn't say it's for cooking, lo mikabel, then you've not accepted upon yourself to forgo on the 10 barrels of wine. Well, if that's true, how come the Gemara said, how come Rabbi Zvid said that the only reason we're going to give you good quality wine is because you said I want wine for cooking? Sounds like if you didn't specify for cooking, then you'd be okay with lower quality wine. And yet we're saying now that this opinion holds it's not true. So how you do kimna the amrei lemikvah, that which we established for Rabbi Zvid, that he said he wants wine for cooking, that was because mishum de kasha zeh. That's because we just had a kasha of Rabbi Zvid in the case of martiv zeh on the brisa of martiv zeh. But that's what we had to say that it must be a case where you're talking about that you want wine for cooking. But not to say that if you didn't say for cooking, the halacha would be different. We ran into a collision over here between two brises, so we had to make the cases different. But at the end of the day, even if you didn't say for cooking, so a person would still want high quality wine, and therefore each opinion, and therefore it'll go with that opinion. So at the end of the day, we had two brises of regular martev shel yayin, regular wine, regular seller of wine. And then we differentiated between if you want it for cooking or not for cooking. Then we had martev zeh shel yayin, this seller of wine, where we also differentiated between for cooking and not for cooking. And then the last case was just martev zeh and not for cooking. And that we said was a case where even if the guy gave you totally vinegar, you just want this seller, whatever's in this seller, he didn't specify wine. In the middle of that, we had a question. If you just said martev shel yayin, a seller of wine, and you didn't say for cooking, so you didn't say zeh, and you didn't say for cooking, what's the halacha in that case? That was like a little bit of an ambiguous case. That we had two opinions. In that case, do you accept upon yourself that for every 100 barrels, 10 are going to be bad, and therefore you forgo on them, and it's a good sale or not? That was a machlokas. But the case in our Mishnah that said that for every 100 barrels, you're willing to forgo on 10 of them, sounds like we've established that it's talking about, we said martev zeh, that you want this seller of wine, whatever comes your way. You said zeh and you didn't say for cooking. When you say zeh and not for cooking, you're saying I want this seller of wine. Sounds like you're okay with whatever's in this seller of wine. You didn't say for cooking, so you're not strict upon having a high quality wine. So at the end of the day, that is the synopsis. Okay. Now we're digressing a little bit to other things that are related to wine. And don't worry, the next part is also pretty complicated. So, okay, make up lost time. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said the following. Yain hanimkar b'chanos. You have wine that's sold in a store. What bracha do you make? Mavarchin alav b'rei pri hagafen. The Rav Chisda Amar. Rav Chisda says, Gabe Chamar de Akrim, wine that went sour. One second. Sorry. Wine that's in the store, what it's referring to is, it's bad wine, very low quality wine. So the first opinion says you still make a brei pri hagafen because it's still considered a fruit. It's still considered, you wouldn't say shehakol yet. You only say shehakol if it really got ruined. It's still considered a fruit, so therefore, it's still considered wine. Therefore, you would say brei pri hagafen. Okay, so now Rav Chisda says, what does that mean? He said, wine that went bad. It's like, what I need it for? So, I wouldn't make a brei pri hagafen. Rather, it sounds like he would. Yeah, he would make a shehakol. What do you need spoiled wine for? Yeah, that's what. Yeah, okay. So machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Chisda, by spoiled wine, do you make a brei priagafen, or you'd say no? If I don't need it, spoiled wine, so then it sort of got ruined, so to speak. So therefore, you make it the generic shakol ni'abidvaro. Okay. Mesa, the Brisa says al pas she'ifsha, bread that went sour, v'hal yayin shehikrim, and wine that went sour, al tavshil she'avra tzuraso, and a cooked food that lost its tzura, lost its image, meaning it's spoiled, totally spoiled. So what do you say? Omer shakol ni'abidvaro. You say the brach of shakol ni'abidvaro. So why over here by wine? Does one opinion say that you would still make a brei priagafen? So we're asking now on Rav Yehuda. Rav Zvid answers and says, Moder Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda agrees. Bepurtzama de mizdaven akarnasa. So purtzama de mizdaven akarnasa is either wine that's sold, in the very low quality wine that's worse than other wines, and it's sold in the karna, in the corners of the city, on the pathway, like a, I don't know if it's
like a kiosk or something.
Yeah, like a kiosk or like Chinatown, you sell at the outskirts of town, everything's very cheap there. It's a super low quality wine. So if Yehuda would agree that in such a case, which is what the Bryce is talking about, there he would agree it's a shackle, that you'd make a shackle. There in the corner, in the outskirts of town, people just want, just buy things quickly. So they'll buy anything, even super cheap wine. The other explanation of what it means, the purtzama, it's referring to the purtzafa. Partzuf is like the image, the face, meaning shenishtana marisa. There's Ram says upartzufa. The wine now looks different. So meaning it doesn't look like regular good wine. It looks very different once the image of wine has changed. So that's where Rabbi Yehuda is going to agree that you make a shackle. So either he'll agree by super cheap wine that it's so low quality already that he'll get a shackle, or he'll have to say that it's talking about wine that's actually changed its appearance. And if wine has changed its appearance, so then he'll agree that you make a shackle. Okay. Amrle Abaye le Rav Yosef. Abaye asks Rav Yosef, Harav Yehuda, Harav Chisda. So this machlokas over here, Rav Yehuda and Rav Chisda. So Mar Kiman Tzvirule. You, Rav Yosef, who do you go like? We have two opinions here. Wine that went bad, brei priagafen or shehakol. Says Abaye, you, Rav Yosef, who do you hold like? So Amarle, Rav Yosef says, I'll bring you a brisa. Amarle, masnisa yadana. So only a few minutes left, but we'll start this brisa and we'll have to analyze it tomorrow. Okay, but let's the three cases in the brisa. Let's just try to get the cases down. The Tanya, we're going to bring a long brisa, and at the end we're going to come back to why it's relevant to us. But first, we have to all the nitty gritty down first, and then we'll appreciate the question. Says the brisa the following: the Tanya, habotek es achavis lihios mafresh la truma. So the halacha is that you have to take off truma. You have to take off your first bit of wine. So the problem is, if the wine became vinegar, you can't take off vinegar on wine. You have to separate wine on wine. So if wine went bad and now it's vinegar, then you're going to have to find other wine to take truma off of to allow the rest of your wine to be consumed. But if it became vinegar, so then that's not going to work. So habodek as a chavis lios mafresh aleha truma, you went to go check your barrel of wine, the one that you want to take truma off of, the holech. You checked it, it was wine. You continued on your way. A month or two later, what happened? You went to check it again, and it's vinegar. So now, the question is going to be, when can you assume, when's the last point in time you can assume that it was wine? When can you assume it was vinegar? When is it a case that it's in doubt? How do you view it? The first point you checked it, it was wine. The last time you checked it, it was vinegar. So does it matter that it's tasted like wine, but it smelled like vinegar? Or maybe, so let's see. Okay, 2 minutes left. Yeah. So now, the first opinion says the following. Kol shlosha yom vadai Mikan ve'elech safek. Says the first opinion, the first 3 days after you check. So you checked it in January. Yeah? Or I guess I don't, let's say now we're in 1st of October. You checked it the 1st of October and it was wine. You come back 1st of November, it's vinegar. The first opinion says that from the 1st of October through the 3rd of October, you can assume that the wine was wine. For sure wine. After October 3rd, mikan ve'elech safek. From that point on, you can assume it has a status of doubt. We're not sure if it's wine or not. So says the Gemara. So what does that mean? So now, sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit. What does it mean for 3 days? It's for sure, and from that point on, it's a suffix. Sorry, that's going to be now a question. What does that mean? So Ma'i Kamer, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Haki Kamer. Read it the following way: Kol Shosh Yamim Rishonim Vada Yayin Mikan Ve'elech Safek. The first 3 days. So the first opinion is Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. From October 1st through October 3rd, it's for sure wine. After October 3rd, you have to assume that it's actually wine that's become doubtful. We're not sure if it's wine or vinegar. My time. What's the reason for Rabbi Yochanan? Chamra me'ilai akar. Wine goes sour from the top of the barrel downwards. So v'hayi te'ime v'lo akar. So this person tasted it, right? He's tasting wine from the top of the barrel. Wine goes sour from the top down. This guy tasted it from the top, tasted great to him. So therefore, you can assume it's for sure wine. Yeah. V'hayi te'ime v'lo akar. Yeah. So after that, you could assume that he tasted it was wine, but then you could assume that maybe it started to trickle downwards, and maybe it became vinegar. So that's why after 3 days, you can assume that it's in doubt now. Now, says the Gemara, Imtim Salomar, Basar de Te'ime Akar. One second. One second. My time. This person tasted it, and it didn't go bad. Now, imtim salomar basar de te'ime. Let's say after you tasted it, it went bad. So after the 1st of October, 3 days later, it started to go bad. So what would happen? Let's say right after you tasted it went bad. Let's say after October 1st. So how come on October 2nd and 3rd, you still assume it's wine? Maybe it went bad the second after you tasted it. Why do you assume the first 3 days it's still going to be considered good wine? Because have reicha chala the tame chamra. Just because it smells bad, it's maybe even if it smelled like vinegar, but it tasted like wine. If it smells bad, but it still tastes like wine, then it still has the halachic status of wine. We don't assume that it's vinegar. I'm sorry, it's 6:20 to start Slichos. We will continue from here tomorrow. Yeah, we'll review this again and try to race down to the 2 dots and make up some lost ground.
Rabbi, I thought it was 6:30 today.
Oh, it's 6:30?
Yeah, that's what it said on the Friday mailing.
Not 6:20? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Correct. Check. We don't mind a little bit less sour wine.
1 second.
Hear you, right, yeah.
Y'all see it's 6:30 today? Oh, it's 6:30. Charles, you're right.
Every once in a while, you got to be right.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, fantastic. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, my apologies. Okay, so says Rabbi Yochanan that the first 3 days, even after you tasted it, even if it started to go bad after you tasted the wine, so it's only starting to go bad. The beginning of wine going sour, that it starts to smell like vinegar. So we're saying, and even if it went bad, let's assume, right? October 1st, you tasted it, it tasted like wine. And so let's say you're going to assume that the second after you tasted it, that's when it began its vinegar process. But still, it's only going to start smelling like vinegar for a few days. That's the first stage. And if it smells like vinegar and it tastes like wine, it has a halakhic status of wine. That's the first opinion. That if it's reicha chala v'taimei chamra, it smells bad, but it still has a taste of wine. It's be considered wine. V'kol reicha chala v'taimei chamra, tamra. And any smell is, if it smells like vinegar and it tastes like wine, it's going to be wine. That's the first opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Second opinion, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Amar, like this: Kol shlosha yamim hachronim. The last, right, November 1st. You tasted it October 1st. You checked it November 1st. November 1st, it's for sure vinegar. Says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Okay, so now work backwards. November 1st, it was for sure vinegar. So now say like this: the 3 days before that, so the last 3 days of October, vaday chomet. You can assume it was for sure vinegar, right? So November 1st, it's vinegar. The previous 3 days, you can assume it's for sure vinegar. Mikanu laholan, but from that point, working backwards through the entire month of October, that's where you're in doubt. So he learns the brisa to the exact opposite. Not that the first 3 days and from that point on, it's a suffix. The last 3 days, up until the last moment, it was vinegar, those 3 days. And before that, the entire month of October, it's going to be considered a suffix. My time, what's his reasoning? He learns, chamra mitatay akar. Wine goes sour from bottom up, from the bottom of the barrel upwards. So the Eimer akar v'lavadaite. When you tasted the wine on October 1st, maybe it was already going sour. It started going sour from the bottom. Just you weren't aware of that. Now, and even if you'll tell me the imtim talomar me'iloi akar, and even if you'll tell me he'll agree that really wine goes sour from the top down, the hay te'ime v'lo akar, and when you tasted it, it hasn't gone sour yet. But the problem is, even if after October 1st, when it tastes like wine, you didn't taste that it went bad, but really the next moment it started going bad. Dilma basar de te'ime akar. Maybe you really go after the way it tastes. And have reicha chala v'taimei chamra, even if it smells bad, but it tastes good. Have reicha chala v'taimei chamra, the reicha chala v'taimei chamra chala. But he's of the opinion that even if you'll tell me that it tasted like wine, but if the moment after, so October 1st, you tasted it tastes like wine, and you want to say that the next moment after you tasted it, it started going sour, or it was going sour the whole time. The fact that you tasted like wine, but he holds if it tastes like wine, but it smells like vinegar, then it has the halakhic status of vinegar. So that's why, according to him, that even October 1st, when you taste it, it tasted like wine. It could be that it was really already going sour, and therefore, just because it tasted like wine, that's not like a dead giveaway, because it could be it smelled like vinegar. So therefore, and he holds if it tastes like wine, but it smells like vinegar, it's going to have the status of vinegar. Yeah. The third opinion says, Masnu Mishmeid Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. He's the third opinion. He holds both extremes. Rishonim, the first 3 days, vadayayin. It's for sure wine. Achronim, so from October 1st to October 3rd, for sure wine. From November 1st, working backwards, the previous 3 days, so achronim, vaday chometz. First 3 days are for sure wine. The last 3 days are for sure vinegar. And the middle, emtsayim safek. And the middle days are days of doubt. So on that we're saying, well, hold on, which way do you hold? Hagufa kasha. Amris rishonim vadayayin. If you hold the first 3 days are for sure wine, so what does that mean? So the fact that it might have smelled bad is irrelevant because you go after the taste. Alma reicha chala v'taimei chamra chamra. If it smells bad but it tastes like wine, it has a status of wine. And then you told me v'hadar amris achronim vaday chometz. The last 3 days are for sure vinegar. Why? Because alma reicha chala v'taimei chamra. Because even if the last day you tasted it, you tasted vinegar. The days before that, it could be it was still wine, but too bad. Since it smelled like vinegar, it's going to have the status of vinegar. Alma reicha chala v'taimei chamra kala. It's going to be vinegar. Okay, Jules, help me out here. This is where I got up to. Kegon de eshtachek. So what's the case? Kegon de eshtachek chala siftika. It really, you found it to be vinegar siftika. Very strong vinegar. And therefore, if it's very strong vinegar, the ilav, the akar, tlate yome, lo have mishtachech. So it's very, very strong vinegar. And therefore, if it didn't for sure go sour the last 3 days, it would never have tasted this strongly. So it's an extra, I think that's what it says, right? It's an extra strong vinegar that is, because it's so strong, it must have for sure gone sour 3 days earlier. And that's why you could assume that the last 3 days, it's for sure going to be vinegar. So now, Rabbi Yosef's coming to answer this question of Abaye. Bad wine, you make a shehakal or brave for your gafen. So Abaye asks to Rabbi Yosef, who do you hold like? And Rabbi Yosef told you, I have a brisa for you. Okay, very nice. We have a brisa now. He brought 3 cases. So now we're asking, Kiman Pashaleh. So who was Rabbi Yosef going like? Kiman Pashaleh Rabbi Yosef to Abaye. Who was he going like? So says the Gemara, Pligi ba Rav Mari v'Rav Zvit. Chad marker of Yochanan, v'chad marker of Yeshua ben Levi. There's actually a machlokas. What exactly Rav Yosef held? One opinion held like Rav Yochanan, and one opinion held like Rav Yeshua ben Levi. Meaning, from this brisa, which was talking about truma, taking off truma, what came out of this discussion is actually a machlokas tanoim. If wine smells like vinegar, it began its souring process. Is that considered like wine? Or is that considered like vinegar? So there's a machlokas now when Rabbi Yosef told Abaye, I have a brisa for you. He was being vague. Now there's a machlokas. What did he mean? Did he go like the opinion that said, tastes like wine, smells like vinegar is wine? If that would be true, you would make a brei priya gafen. Or there's another opinion that says that if it smells like vinegar, even though it tastes like wine, it's going to have a status of vinegar. And if it has a status of vinegar, so then the bracha is no longer going to be brei priya gafen. Rather, it's going to be shehakal, and that's a much better place to stop. Charles, thank you very much. 10 more minutes of learning. Shkayach. Gary.